Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is episode 22. My name is Adil Ma, and I have misophonia. This week I'm bringing a conversation with Carson, a sophomore studying architecture in New York City. We talk about growing up in Nebraska and how his family members reacted to his misophonia, something he remembers from the age of 5. There were some dramatic moments along the way before the family started to learn that misophonia is real, and we talk about if and how people started to react differently. I think Carson also uses the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, really effectively for getting accommodations at his school, and I think this will be a really interesting chat for people who've been asking about disability accommodations at school and at work. Lately, it feels kind of like we've all got some kind of a disability. We're stuck at home, which is sometimes a blessing, but also can be a claustrophobic, misophonic nightmare. I'm curious how you're all coping with things. I'm fortunate to be familiar with working from home, so I have the routine and the space and the gear to make this a relatively easy transition. And spending less time in restaurants and grocery stores and tedious conversations with strangers at social events is all not a bad thing. But if you have experiences you want to share, please hit me up on our social channels. That's at Misophonia Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. Also at Misophonia Show on Twitter. Anyways, for now, find a quiet spot in your shelter and listen to this chat with Carson. Well, Carson, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, it's kind of become tradition. I like to kind of ask where people are from. Whereabouts are you?
I'm from New York. I'm in New York City, but I'm from Nebraska.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool. And what are you doing in New York? You're at school, working?
Yeah, right now I'm studying to be an architectural designer. So I'm in my undergrad at the moment.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. How long have you been in New York? Then you're a freshman there?
No, I'm a sophomore at the moment, but
Okay.
I've been in and out, for the past 10 years. So I'm kind of comfortable with the city.
Oh, got it. In there for the past 10 years. Okay, cool. And how do you like it kind of on a, New York's a big city. I'm assuming that obviously a lot of it's pretty loud. Have you kind of dealt with it, or you kind of like that environment?
Yeah, I'm constantly wearing earbuds, really.
Yeah.
Like on subway, going around the city and stuff. I try to, when I'm walking, I try to not have earbuds in. But there's always that occasional dude who's just walking behind me and he's like constantly sniffing, especially during the winter time. That kind of gets annoying.
Outside you can obviously run away as fast as you can, but in school in a lecture class environment, it's got to be kind of rough sometimes. Yeah.
So for my school, the architectural design, the kind of curriculum is a little different than like a traditional college in the sense of like everything's lectures. I do have one class that is a lecture, and that would be like a history class. That one is just unbearable. I've kind of barely been able to get information from it. But more of my important classes are like studio classes.
Okay.
Kind of what I'm with like a smaller group of people. That kind of like limits sound to a degree, and I'm also able to focus because it's more work time than actual teaching time. So that's the good thing about the school I'm in. There's also accommodation. I'm able to get like a accommodation report that's sent out to the teachers and stuff so that they understand I'm wearing earbuds for a reason, not just jamming out the music.
Yeah, so normally they wouldn't allow you to wear anything, or was it just kind of like to kind of preemptively address that?
I think some teachers are more strict than others. If I didn't have the report, I think some would be okay. They don't really care, but it's just a good thing to have for those strict teachers who just are so adamant about you listening to every second of it.
Yeah. A lot of are people like eating and stuff, or
most definitely people are eating. I just put my earbuds in every time that happens. But it also helps me to focus during class because my group is like a huge chatterbox, and they kind of distract people so much that I kind of want to put earbuds in so I can focus on my work and not spend so much time talking with them.
And where did you get the report from? From a doctor?
Yes. So, I have a history of within the schooling system of always having accommodations for that.
Mm-hmm.
So like in high school, I had accommodations for the teachers, so you're able to have that on your record. Also, with a therapist, they're able to confirm certain aspects about the disorder, and then kind of combine that as like an overall history that can be sent to the college for them to confirm it for you.
Got it. So since high school, it's specifically been about misophonia, or was it initially something more popular, quote unquote?
Yeah. It was always about misophonia. Yeah,
Okay.
like I've I've been pretty aware of it even since I was pretty young. Like before I even knew what it was, I had an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, even my mom did. Like we all had an idea that there something wasn't necessarily normal.
So how long ago was that then that you
Um,
that problems were happening? Problems
right.
had started.
Probably when I was like 5 years old. That's the
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
It's
early.
always been. I've always been like a sensitive child, according to my mom.
Yeah.
Where certain things like textures to sounds were always like bothering me. Like when I was younger, I would always not wear socks because I didn't like the feeling of the socks suffocating my feet, kind of like that. So I was always
Mm.
sensitive to my senses in general.
Oh, got it. And did doctors or therapists put a name to any like the others? Like it sounds like a more did they give you like a I don't actually don't know all the terminology, but for a any other sensory processing disorders that they brought up, or was it
Not
specific
not in,
mainly about misophonia?
Not until recently,
Okay.
since there's like not like an official diagnosis for misophonia. I'm kind of
Yeah.
like categorized within the OCD category, also with anxiety.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, but
Gotcha. Okay, and then yeah, so wow, since five, was it just that you and your parents had kind of like sensed something on your own since 5 years old, or and kind of what did you do until you went to I guess mention to a doctor?
yeah, well, at the beginning it was kind of not as intense as it is today. I would say
Mm-hmm.
like during puberty is when it like really got intense.
Yeah,
But there was always like those that one person that always kind of triggered a response.
yeah.
That was usually like my younger sister. She was like my earliest memory was like being in a car with her and she was like chewing gum and I did not like that.
Yeah.
Um, but
That was your younger sister?
yeah.
Okay. Hmm.
But going forward, we had like a different kind of people have had different types of responses regarding what I had. They usually thought, oh, you're going to grow out of it. It's a phase. You're being overly sensitive, or you're making up in general for attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that definitely happened within my family, where you had my like two spheres. Like one sphere is my mom, who's like kind of somewhat, supportive, but also kind of annoyed by it as well because it is kind of frustrating to deal with a child
Yeah.
who is constantly,
Right.
yelling at why you're making a certain sound. It's like that makes no sense, which I understand. While the other sphere is like my dad, my grandma, and other family members who kind of thought I was making it up at the first, um, when I was younger, like around 5 till 10. Uh,
Yeah.
Once I got a official kind of description of what it was with a word, it kind of convinced my dad a bit more. Nowadays he's a lot more understanding. We have like very in-depth talks about like the psychology behind dealing with misophonia,
Hmm.
and sometimes he even leads the fights, as parents do.
Oh, between your parents?
No, just
Oh.
me and my dad.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, but I thought he was supportive. Is it just kind of you guys are kind of he's trying to offer maybe is he trying to offer ways to cope and you're like, dude, it doesn't work that way,
Yeah,
or is it, yeah,
that it's
okay,
kind of like that. It's also like basically he doesn't want me to deal with such a burden. So he's
mm-hmm.
kind of like there has to be a way for you to not deal with this or for you to be able to overcome it. That's kind of what he was saying. And
Gotcha.
for me it's like impossible to think of a world where I don't have misophonia. So it's kind of hard to deal with those arguments and I kind of get a little annoyed with them.
Yeah, I mean it's a whole filter on our lives, and it's hard to see the world without it,
Hmm.
um, which is not what the other side, I guess, thinks. But I guess parents kind of want to see you succeed, I would imagine, and they wish, yeah, they want to remove as many burdens as possible, but it's not that easy.
Right.
So between 5 and 10, okay, yeah, you were noticing obviously annoyances, puberty hit, body's changing like crazy, very common as you I'm sure you know, that misophonia kicks in. Was it affecting your school at that point, or was it like okay, I'm noticing these issues,
Yeah.
but
Um, for me, the last 3 years of high school was probably the roughest time
yeah,
I've had in my life. But like starting in junior high, I would say it started to get a little more rougher.
yeah,
Like the first year of junior high was around like seventh grade. There was like sounds, but it was more isolated to family. Like the sphere of who was triggering me was enlarging within my family. So it wasn't just my sister anymore. It was my sister, my mom, and
yeah.
and my dad, while also my grandma because she lives with us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but going on into more like the end of junior high, it started to be people within the school, which was kind of alarming for me because the main thing that came up was like A, friendships, and B, just dealing with class in general.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's like these people who were loud at breathing, or for the most impactful experience was when we did like a school trip to go to DC and New York.
yeah,
And there's this one person, I didn't have earbuds back then. I didn't have the accommodation quite yet. And I also didn't
yeah.
know that was kind of an effective coping mechanism. So I was in an airplane, and this person who's like, I don't know, a habitual sniffer, their nose
Mm-hmm.
wasn't stuffy, but they still sniffed. They just did it out of habit, I assumed.
Yeah,
Um, and they just kept doing it over and over again to the point where I was just going insane. I was just like plugging my ears and,
yeah,
kind of like on the verge of, breaking down while like
yeah,
the poor person sitting next to me is like, what the heck's happening to this guy?
yeah, yeah. Oh, so that was in junior high that you took that trip?
Yeah, it was at the end of junior high.
Okay.
And then after that, that's when it like freshman year, I don't remember freshman year being that bad. I think it was just
Mm.
the luck with the classes I had.
Yeah.
But I do, recognize that I was like, oh, certain sounds are making me annoyed. But it was really sophomore year that I kind of just,
Sophomore of high school. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sophomore high school year, just kind of got really bad compared to the previous experiences I had
Yeah.
in my life.
So it was affecting grades?
See, I would have to be really resourceful with how I get the information.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I would, if there was a book or going after class to talk with the teacher, I do really well. I got really good at lip reading, stuff like that. Like
So
most,
you'd blast music in your ears and be lip reading?
yeah, to
Yeah,
a
that's
degree. Like,
amazing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
sometimes I couldn't get the teacher. Sometimes I would like take a break. Like, all right, now it's my 3 minute window. I can, kind of deal with this before I go insane, and then I can
Yeah.
listen to what the teacher's saying. So it's kind of like snippets.
Ah,
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
but like
Interesting.
certain
Kind of like
class,
speed reading, yeah, or
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But like certain classes that I wasn't so like,
strong in or
yeah,
whatever.
interested in, what's to
Yeah.
say, like physics and psychology class, like those were like they're intense information that you would have to
Yeah.
understand, especially when it came to physics class, because I was always in the back of the classroom because I was allowed with my accommodation to move my seating, and I would
Yeah.
just have the earbuds in, but it didn't matter because there's so much people just making sounds. It's just overwhelmed me to a point where I couldn't even listen. There's this funny story actually is out of a coping mechanism, out of all this sniffing and all these sounds like that, I would mock them. And I know people do it. They
Mimicking,
talked
yeah.
about that. Yeah, I would mock them to the degree where I'm so over dramatic that they understand that the sound is present, so they get annoyed with it too. And the teacher walked out of the room and called me on the intercom to come into the principal's office, and he talked
Yeah.
about me to stop sniffing. I was like, well, there's also other people, but I get it. But it was just funny because I was the person who was always annoyed with sniffing, and all of a
So
sudden,
you weren't like you weren't trying to make a big deal about it, but you were mimicking to yourself, kind
yeah,
of, and and then other people noticed that, and then okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah,
That's hilarious. In a way that only Misophone could understand, probably, but
yeah.
it is. Okay, so you what were you listening to, by the way, well, while you were lip reading? I'm just curious. Was it white noise? Was it heavy metal? Was it
See,
Kenny G?
for me, white noise isn't really, work to a degree. Like it
Hmm.
works when there's not a lot of people sniffing, because that one's just such an intense, I don't know, frequency, I guess, where it kind of
Yeah,
just like goes through the barrier of white noise. Um, for me, it was mostly just metal, because that was the
yeah.
loudest thing I could think of, and now I'm kind of a metalhead because of that.
Cool, cool. Okay, so interesting. You had some creative ways of getting around, of getting through academically, whether it's lip reading, mimicking, until you got sent to Prince Pops and various things like that. How did it affect friendships?
Yeah. Um, So I don't really have like a intense history of having friends. Especially when I was younger, I only had like one, and that one was like toxic to a degree, to where
Mm,
we're off and on, and I didn't really have a friend group until I was in like junior high. And I don't. Most of them don't know I have misophonia, except for one person, because they had to go. They went on a trip with me and my family, and they saw me acting weird around my family, especially when it came to restaurants. I had to tell them in that instance.
yeah,
Um, the thing is about friendship is like once you kind of tell someone, there's like this weird thing that happens when they look at you. It's kind of like they're always walking on eggshells.
eggshells. Yeah,
Yeah, I just don't. It becomes awkward. It's kind of like a glass wall where you can speak to them, talk to them, but you can't really like bond to them to an emotional degree that you can with someone else with misophonia.
yeah,
And they're always like, "Oh, did I make that sound?" It's like it's awkward for me because I was like, "Yeah, you made that sound, but I don't want you to make a big deal out of it to where it makes me feel weird because I
yeah.
feel it's not normal." Um, so
Right. We just want to move on. We just don't want to hear it again.
yeah,
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 we don't
that
really want to shine a spotlight on it.
yeah. But some people like who did find out or started to know about misophonia, especially with me, is they would like I don't know, kind of jokingly kind of understand it, like, "Oh, are you making something up?" Or they would kind of like
Yeah,
make the sound,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like they didn't understand the full weight of what the disorder was.
Right. Yeah, that's a common, unfortunate reaction, no, upon hearing about it. So you sort of it became a barrier to kind of getting a lot of friends because you were probably you just don't have to deal with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like social skills.
Yeah.
Like always having earbuds in kind of like limits you from people approaching you and also from you hearing social experiences.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So like I don't have like a really good mental catalog of social things to do. So it's
Hmm.
kind of hard for me to make friends or for friends to find me because I'm always isolating myself unintentionally because of
Right.
the disorder.
Right. 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 And so now you're in New York. Have you been able to make more friends like now that you're in university, well, college or whatever, and you're in the biggest city in the world, or at least in the United States? Has that kind of helped socially? Maybe actually have you met other misophones now that we're trying to get out there more?
I don't think I've ever really met someone who has misophonia. Um,
Gotcha.
but in New York, I've had good encounters. With people. I do have people I talk with.
New Yorkers
Uh,
have seen everything, so I would imagine that there's a lot of them who would not be wouldn't be phased by this.
yeah,
So
especially like the
it's
first
different from
person.
Nebraska, I would imagine.
Yeah, most definitely. Especially the culture of like,
Yeah.
yeah, the culture of Nebraska is more of like, oh, you're making it up for attention, while New York is probably more like, there's probably more to it than that.
Or this was probably a macho thing in the Midwest. So
Hmm.
gotcha. Okay, so as New York's been a little bit better for you, is that one of the reasons why maybe you were attracted to moving to living in New York?
There's two reasons. B is or A, is because I wanted to kind of go into an architectural kind of sphere,
Yeah.
and then B because my sister lives up there, so it's kind of nice to my older sister, not my younger, but
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Is your younger one still smacking gum and annoying you, or?
yeah, yeah. She also has that plus like a visual trigger.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, okay. But is that I see? But I was kind of kidding. But in all seriousness, is that is it still something that you kind of like think about when you're meeting with her and kind of affects your how often you see her?
Um, I think she's gotten to a point where she's so good at not triggering me using sounds
Mm.
that it's not really a thing. Because I don't eat with them. Her main thing with me is just eating. So that she hasn't really been a problem for me actually.
And was
And
it intentional on her part? Like she intentionally makes an
um,
effort?
yeah, like our whole family is very aware of it now,
Yeah.
especially out of the conflict the past 6 years.
Mm.
There's been a lot of fights about it, a lot of outbreaks. Like
Yeah.
there's like for example, when I was like, I think it was when my older sister was starting to go to college, and they did this like dinner thing in like an Italian restaurant somewhere in the main city in Omaha. And I think they wanted me to eat with everyone because it's my sister's last meal
Yeah.
with us, and we kind of want to socialize and say goodbye in a formal way. Um, and that wasn't good for me. I outbursted to a degree where I spilt something on the table, and that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
drove a whole fiasco. And like I would go and hide in the bathroom, and I
Hmm.
still do that to this day, depending on
Hmm.
how intense the room is. And I would hide in that bathroom, and my family didn't know I was at. I was like, I told them I'm going to the bathroom because I need to go to
Yeah.
the bathroom, but in reality, I was just trying to hide. Um, and then like I think my sister, my older one, went to the bathroom, and she found me hiding like outside in the hallway, and we
Mm.
just got into this like miniature fight to the point where she ended up like crying to my face because she didn't
Mm.
understand it,
Yeah.
which is a kind of a phenomenon within my family where people would cry to my face because it's so intense for them. And I
Yeah.
always like ask, why are you crying? I should be crying because it's such an intense experience.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's amazing. It does. Yeah, it's a tough thing. Yeah, I mean it's a tough thing on both sides. How did you guys end that? Is it was I mean, it seems like you're at least still seeing your sisters and stuff.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a lot. Well, what changed basically? So did something change in terms of their kind of effort level to accommodate with you, or was that maybe a watershed moment?
I think it's the recognizing as an actual thing.
Yeah.
Like there's science behind it, and that kind of like enforces it. And also like they've dealt with it with so much that they know it's me and not something that's like that they should be shaming me on.
So that dinner was kind of earlier on in your
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
I would say
Gotcha.
like mid early.
Yeah.
It changed a lot more and more in high school. Especially we had more visits with therapists and officials and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. I'm glad that yeah, I'm glad yeah, I mean it's for some people have lived with it for decades as
Hmm.
you'll hear in some episodes. So that's great that you despite it and yeah, years is a long time, but at least it seems to be people are at least your loved ones are becoming more accommodating and it's been easier to hang out with them. Going back to your school here, did you say you were getting accommodations at the college you're at now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go through like the
Right, the earplug, you can wear earbuds or whatever.
yeah, it's mostly with earbuds and being able to take breaks during class. So
Gotcha.
I go through like the disability kind of, I don't know, administration.
ADA? You
Yeah,
get through
yeah,
ADA?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then basically I kind of reconfirm it each semester, and then I send out a mass email to my professors to kind of let them know that I'm doing this and this is an actual thing, and I'm not just making it up.
So what do you mean you go through ADA? Is it through a therapist or is there an ADA like website you need to get claim I don't know,
At,
claim something, a report or whatever?
at first, it was the dude who ran it, and we had like a phone interview where we then faxed over all the actual information and history, and
Mm-hmm.
from there. each semester I just go to their website and reconfirm it since I'm already on their record.
Okay, so just to kind of back, because I think a lot of people will be very interested in this. You and your family kind of uploaded your personal history to where to your someone at school or
I
at
think
the federal
to
government?
the ADA office.
Ah, okay,
So we
okay.
faxed it to them.
The official like federal government ADA office
I think it was with the school one.
with the school. Okay,
Yeah,
got it. The ADA office
the
in the school.
yeah
Yep,
the specific school one. It
gotcha.
really helps to have like a therapist to who kind
Yeah,
of like also has their own thoughts on it and their own diagnosis, so you can kind of combine those. It kind of like allows you to have the accommodation. But
oh, right, because you can do it without you can't. It is possible to do it without a therapist. I would have I've heard.
yeah, I just didn't want to take any chances if I
Yeah.
got declined.
So this amazing therapist is it somebody that you sought out because you knew that they were kind of on the forefront of misophonia research and accommodation, or was it kind of coincidence?
Um, so my mom found them. It was the last 2 years of high school. She was looking for some people to kind of like help mediate the experience I have. So first she started with like an audiologist to where
Yeah,
they had a kind of like an ear thing where that constantly plays white noise into you. That never really worked for me. So we kind of like moved on from that. And he recommended a therapist, um, which is a really good therapist within the OCD community
mm,
in Omaha. So he kind of deals with people who younger kids who have autism or OCD and anxiety disorders, and
yeah,
so he's more of a behavioral therapist, kind of like help you deal with that behavior and talk through certain intense emotional
situations.
moments.
Yeah, that makes sense. That yeah, I mean, if in the absence of any official recognition, that would be kind of the
hmm
closest thing. So have you were you working then with have you been working with that same doctor or therapist since then?
Um, Recently I stopped going because I'm in New York
Yeah,
now.
you're in New York now. Yeah.
Right. The last time I was with him was this summer because I was going back to Nebraska just for the summer. I won't be going back anymore, but he did give us a recommendation of someone who's within his same field in New
Yeah.
York. But we've had some struggles with that because of insurance and stuff
Gotcha.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine New York shouldn't be that hard to find somebody like that. So yeah, what are your kind of like other mechanisms these days? Is it mainly the stuff in school like putting earbuds on and then well obviously when you're walking around New York, are there any other like how about your living conditions like at home?
So right now I live with like two roommates.
Hmm.
So they're super quiet and really chill. So I lucked out because it was
Yeah.
random. It was a random assignment
Oh
based off a
man.
website.
Yeah. Dangerous.
Yeah,
But
it is a little dangerous.
yeah.
But they're like super cool people where they're actually kind of very sensitive to their surroundings as well. Um, so we kind of we relate in that sense. But my other coping mechanisms is just basically earbuds, bathroom breaks, mocking, and then this weird one, which is basically just ones I had from my family because there's so much history regarding of how many times they've kind of
Yeah.
triggered me. So I would have a flicking mechanism to, I would flick their shoulder, for example. I was like,
Oh.
so for me, it's like I need revenge because they're making me feel bad. So I'm going to flick them, and that kind of associated something within my brain to feel okay. It has become equal. I don't have to freak out anymore.
Yeah, so basically, instead of punching them in the face, kind of thing, it's
Yeah.
it's like a flick where it's and they as long as they understand what the heck you're doing, or maybe you don't, maybe they don't, but it's more gentle way of signaling to your brain that you have control maybe of this
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
you have kind of pushed it away. Interesting, I've never heard that.
hmm
And that kind of works. How did you discover that? Was it just
Uh,
you
I
almost punched them in the face once, and you when they moved and it turned into a flick, and then you're like, oh, okay.
no. Basically, there's this class in junior high that was talking about conditioning, classical conditioning, where I would use negative reinforcement to have someone stop a behavior. So I went to my grandma and I would flick her every time she sniffed. And that
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to have like a negative reinforcement. All right, they don't like the flick, so that means over time they would stop doing it because they associate the flick with stuff like that. Overall, over time it kind of like changed to more of like something that just released the stress within me
Yeah, yeah,
because of the reasoning. It makes no sense. It's not
yeah.
supposed to make sense. It's
Right.
completely abnormal in that sense.
Well, something will make sense eventually, but
Hmm.
yeah, all we've got is a bunch of stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so talk maybe a little bit more about visual triggers. Is that something that also, I mean, I've heard that kind of creep up, post puberty with a lot of
Yeah.
people. How was that evolution?
So I think the first visual trigger can't really be relating to synesthesia. Is that what it's called?
Misokinesia, I believe. It's
Mycokinesia.
kind of
All
like
right.
it's like movement, so movement, visual, yeah.
Yeah, it's more of the appearance of bare feet for me was just like I
Hmm.
can't look at that. I think that's more of like an OCD thing than actual
Yeah.
misophonia. But because I've kind of associated so much of uh, certain kind of moving of the jaw or the sniffing of the nose. Even if I have earbuds in, I just can't look at them when
Yeah.
I'm doing those things because I've associated with that, and it
Yep.
kind of becomes unbearable to look at. So like in the subway, I'll see someone eating, I'll just close my eyes the entire subway ride,
Yeah.
um, and that's kind of what I do to kind of cope with those types of visual triggers.
Do we talk about when exactly and how you found out that there was a name? Was it that therapist that showed it to you, or it was an internet search like a lot of
No,
people?
I think what happened is my mom did a little search for herself,
Yeah.
but she never told me that it
Crazy
was
son,
yeah, crazy son
yeah,
who yells at you for
who
eating.
keeps flicking my shoulder.
But I think we both did our own search. I did my own search when I was like, I think it was the beginning of high school.
It
Um,
wasn't too long ago because I mean you're a sophomore in college, so yeah, I
yeah.
mean it's right around that time when everyone was finding all these articles written by the New York Times or Reader's
Hmm.
Digest. I've heard everything, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I found the Misophonia website.
Ah, okay.
Kind of like
There's been a few. Which one? Do you remember which one?
I don't at
Okay.
the moment. I haven't been to it for a while,
Yeah.
but it was a misophonia website that kind of
Yeah.
like had all the details around it. And I asked my mom,
Hmm.
I think I have, misophonia. And she was like, yeah, I know. I think you do too. I was like, oh, you know about it. I was like, yeah. She just never told me about it. And we kind of came to a consensus based off of most of our research on it.
So was that post the that oh, around when was that? Like early high school,
Yeah, I would
late?
say late junior high, early high school.
Was it after that dinner?
Yeah, way
Okay,
after. Yeah.
okay. Way after that dinner.
Yeah, I was like 4 or 5 years after.
Okay, wow. So there was that 4 or 5 period wherein it was just like you don't know what it was,
Yeah.
and it was clearly, I'm sure there were other incidents, maybe not quite that dramatic, but or maybe so.
Yeah,
That's
but it
interesting.
was
Okay,
more of like within my family. It's like Carson needs to do his own thing. Have like for
yeah.
Thanksgiving, have him make his plate and he can go upstairs and stuff like that.
Did you feel kind of good about that, or did you feel like did you feel like it was? I'm sure they were not meaning to isolate you, but
Hmm.
did you feel kind of isolated,
That was more of
or
my
was it kind of a
decision.
relief?
It was
Yeah.
more of
Okay.
my decision to
Yeah.
kind of leave, but on the other side, I kind of, I wish I could socialize
Stay.
with family in
Yeah.
those situations. I really don't know what like my extended family really thinks about it. Like the people, my cousins, my uncles, people who, see me kind of act out weird. Like to them, it seems completely foreign and kind of rude to act
Yeah.
out the way I do, especially when it comes to dinners, especially with uh, Thanksgiving. Like sometimes my grandpa would kind of get in an argument with my mom and stuff like
About it?
that. Yeah, about me not being downstairs and stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's kind of
Okay.
been a whole.
Yeah.
Recently, we just gotten to a consensus that this is what it is. This is
Yeah.
what Carson needs to do, and we're okay with it.
Yeah. Let's not dwell on one person who's there, kind of
Hmm.
thing. Especially if it's going to cause pain. So, um, and are you um, Christmas is well, I don't know when this is good. This is probably not going to post for a while, but how are holidays this year? Let's talk about it in general. And are you kind of like is it getting better every year, or people just kind of gotten
Mm-hmm.
used to it?
I mean, it's kind of been the same the past 3 years. I just have my
Yeah.
earbuds in when I'm with the larger family. But when it comes to like smaller stuff, like my family's gotten so good at not
Yeah.
creating triggers that
Yeah.
I'm able to kind of just chill out with them in certain instances.
That's got to feel good, pretty good, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but also I just don't want to force them to do that. But
yes,
it's
I
so normal
understand.
for them now, so it's kind of too
Yeah.
late.
Well, that sounds very promising.
Hmm.
That's wow. That's yeah. That's it's probably going to be inspiring to a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's been a real
Um,
journey.
yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it. Tell me about you what you're doing for school and what you want to do. I mean, you're still young.
Yeah.
There's you probably have a sense of like what kind of work environments are going to be better than others. Have you thought about what you want to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life since I was 7. So
Awesome.
I've kind of been dedicated to you know, that direction ever since.
Yeah.
Like ever since I was 7 years old, 6, 7, I would play with straws to build skyscrapers or take paper and build structural systems and just do that constantly.
Yeah.
Also draw on the side and stuff like that. So uh, I for sure want to be an architect. Um, I'm right now. I'm just in my undergrad. And I'm going to do my master's after that. Um, but other than that, I do illustration and just music as well. But the work environment I want to be in is kind of like a small firm. Um,
Yep.
so where not like the big corporations where you have like 30 people working on a project. I kind of want to do more. I think it's more special work when it's with someone. Uh, this is a smaller firm. They kind of do these kind of dedicated, meaningful projects other than the big budget ones that you see at corporations.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Have a like a smaller shop. That sounds great, and it's something that you can probably do. Yeah, just kind of concentrate quietly. It's very creative. You can go out and do photographs and sketches. I would imagine just kind
Yeah.
of you don't have to be in a giant open office.
Yeah, I can also, longer down my career journey, I could also create my own firm where it's just me.
Yes. Oh
Like
yeah.
that's an ideal, situation for anyone
Yep.
with misophonia to just work by
Yes.
themselves.
That's what I do. I work from home, and I'm recording this in the third floor attic of my house where I have my little home office. So,
Yeah, that's nice.
um, do you have you've been do you have any like I don't know parting words? Do you have any like an advice that you'd want to tell people who maybe had a similar situation as you, maybe don't have all these resources on how to how to cope, how to get to where you are, where it's like I feel like very promising future. You've been through a lot,
Mm.
and probably a lot of people who don't want to go through some of the stuff you've gone through.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes, especially
Mm,
when you're trying to be courageous in the sense of uh, trying to get the accommodation that you need. Don't be afraid to just do it. Don't be
yeah,
afraid that someone might feel bad for it or they might judge you for it. Because it's very helpful to just get it. Because if I could get certain accommodations when I was younger, it would be a lot more helpful for um, my learning experience.
yeah. That's great advice. It doesn't hurt to ask, other than you might feel a bit shy up front, or they might seem a little judgy. When you say mistakes, do you mean
When it comes
like I hear no when you ask for something, or
Yeah, yeah, it's like when it comes to the stakes of dealing with relationships,
yeah,
you might make tons of mistakes, especially when you have misophonia. Those mistakes can be amplified.
right,
Like when it's very weird or odd to someone who has no idea what misophonia is, and you tell them that you cannot deal with their sniffing or their
yeah,
eating, and that has like a way that can go is like they kind of think you're weird and they go
yeah.
off, they move away from you or just the relationship never goes far from there. So like you need to, what I'm saying is like, don't be afraid to risk a relationship just because you don't want to make
Yep.
someone feel bad.
Yep. No, that's important to hear because, yeah, there is a lot of shame and guilt that gets associated, and that causes people to just kind of like stay quiet. So,
yeah, a lot of shame.
Well, that's great advice. And on that note, Carson, yeah, I want to thank you. This is great to hear your story. Yeah, and I wish you luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Carson. Some really great advice there. I'm excited to start a new batch of interview recordings in May. So if you've signed up, I can't wait to talk to you. And I'll be seeing if I can open up more slots since they were all booked last time I checked. The music this week is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you good health, peace, and quiet.